Luckily, removing this rear tin section is pretty easy, actually. Ah! Well, it should be easy. Alright, let me come back in a second. I apparently need to soak that with some Zippy Piss. It's probably the first time I've actually encountered something that's actually seized. So a little bit of Zippy Piss in the breaker bar on this bolt that was under there worked. So I removed 4 bolts to get to this point. Well, like I said, 4 bolts later, and it's just pretty much the chassis, the engine, and the driveline parts that I've added to it. There's the Peerless Transmission. Here's the rear section of the frame. Normally the battery would go pretty much right where that is. Middle section of the frame is, has a cross member. This is the cross member I added to mount the transmission. It's just tacked in there right now. Normally the pegs would go right on top of here. But yeah, that's it. That's all that is to these chassis on these newer model, Craftsman and whatever else is based off of this chassis. That's it, just some stamped steel. But anyways, the reason I took that off is so that I can go ahead and have a look-see at where I need to mount the deck sides. I have plenty of real estate to work with. As long as I don't make them fit over the top of this, I'll be good to go. It'll fit hunky-dory because, like I said, the footboard's right on top of this. So as long as I don't go any higher than that, I'll have no problems. But there you go, that's it. That's what she looks like without her skirts on. Kinda seems like experienced racing lawnmower builders pretty much stripped the chassis down to this to start with, which, to be fair, would have been easier, and now knowing what I know, it would be the right way to go, is just strip it down to what you're looking at right now from the start, and it would make building it a lot easier. But hey, I did a little bit of research and then just started cutting and welding. So hey, here I am. I did some poking around. It definitely needs some frame stiffening. If you lift one of the corners individually, it'll twist the frame pretty good. So some frame stiffening is definitely in order, and there are plenty of spots and space to do it. So I just need to add, selectively add, I should say, cross members here, there, and different places to stiffen it up, because it does have a fair amount of twist if you grab one of the corners and just lift. I don't know if you can see that, but it'll twist pretty good if you lift it by just the corner. It's even worse if you grab it from back here. So this is the lower deck up on the table. I'm pretty much looking at cutting the deck off right about here and then just taking that and mounting it to the chassis over there. Because the running boards at their widest point are 8 inches, so I'm allowed 2 inches over that, and if I remove this lip over here, that pretty much puts me somewhere over here. So I'm probably going to go ahead and grab the plasma cutter and chop myself off that, and we'll go from there. I have all of the best eyeballing tools available. Alright, I have spent some time cleaning up my deck halves. I ground some paint off the edges. I still have to do some work on that side over there. But those are the deck halves that I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and take those. I'm probably going to have to chop this lump off over here and cap it off or something and figure something out for over there because I don't know if it's going to fit in the chassis. But that means I need to take my wannabe mower and put it back on the ground. So the only reason I set it back up on top of here is so that I could do the steering because it'd be easier to go from underneath to do that. So I'm going to go ahead, pick it back up, and put it back on the ground so I can get the right clearances and whatnot for my deck halves. I tell you what, it's a lot easier to lift this thing without the body panels on. There was pretty much no drama involved in lifting it this way now. In the back on the ground it goes. Having it on the ground, however, does remind me that I need to clearance all the steering arms. They got a couple blind spots up there, but it rolls and it does steer. A little bit limited steering right now, but it steers. Okay, I have the body up on the table, and the reason being is I did some trimming. In order to make the deck halves fit, I'm going to have to do some trimming on one of the deck halves at least, and then I needed to do some trimming on the body to make it fit the deck halves better where they're going to end up being mounted. So I just used the angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. It would have been easier if I had the die grinder out, but I already had the angle grinder out. But I just did some little bit of a nibble on this side, on the outside, or the other side, and got left with two even strips on both sides. So I'm just going to switch over to a flap disc and even it out. At some point, I'm probably going to have to cut and splice up this section here to lower the seat for a lowered seating position. I have some inches that I can lose height-wise on the tire. If I were to shorten these bars in here, that would just drop the ass of the seat a lot. But then in order to make it fit the chassis again, I would have to do some slicing and dicing over here to lower the rear of the seat, and whatnot, and stitch it back together. Then I can, if I need to or want to, can cut this section out over here to drop the seat down into the wheel wells a bit. All legal and possible things to do, but for now I am just going to do some selective trimming and whatnot to get the deck halves fit, since that's my chosen task right now. Some selective sanding with the flap disc or grinding with the flap disc, and you'd never know that I chopped about an inch or so off of each side of the footwells. So I'm going to go ahead and call it as that's the position that's going to be mounted in. It's not perfect, but I mean, it's a racing lawnmower, what the hell. I could still do some selective trimming over here, because when you put a bolt in there, tighten it down, and then put some foot weight on it, it does touch the deck. I don't want to weld this to that deck, because I'm going to weld the deck to the chassis. And I still want to have the ability to move this whole rear fender section as easy as it comes up. This side, however, of course, I'm going to have to do some interesting trimming and cutting to knock the mulch bag attachment part over there out of the way. And then I'm going to have to cover that up, but it is what it is. Normally this half would be on that side, but I figured I would swap them since the fender kind of goes up a little bit. I would have to maybe do less trimming, but I guess it really doesn't matter. Too late now, but it is what it is. If I had two junk decks, I could take two of the non-bagger attachment mulching sides so I can mount it just as easily on the other side, but I only have one junk deck, so I'll have to figure out what to do with this over here. But I'm just going to go ahead and bring the welder over here and get that welded in place. Because I plasma torched it off and then ground and whatnot, there are some decent gaps here and there, but I mean, it's not structural, it's pretty much just for looks. Okay, the deck half on this side is in place. Stitching this little section back together was very interesting. This stuff apparently was much thinner in that area than I expected, which I guess I can understand. This is the side that would have, or would be the mulching, bagging, and then blowing side, or whatever you want to call it. So it's where a lot of the grass and stuff would collect, so it was a lot thinner and rusted over here. But it's on there, it's solid, it's not structural, it's just there for looks. I went ahead and ran full beads along that cross member there, and that actually stiffened up the rear of the tractor quite a bit. So a couple cross members in select locations can probably actually fully welding the front of this together, because it kind of just folds over on itself and gets bolted. But a good weld along the front of that will go a long way to stiffen this chassis up. But the body should fit the way that I have it set up, and I'm going to call it a day here. I am definitely going to have to do some hood trimming, because I pretty much have no steering before it hits the body. But again, you know, selective trimming and whatnot is allowed in the rule book. So yeah, like I said, just going to pick up, call it a day here.